Baldur's Gate 3 has several ending variations: a hero ending, an evil ending, a dark urge ending, a sacrificial ending, and even these general ending categories have variation. There are so many possibilities on how you finish your playthrough, and it all hinges on the choices you make. It's a really cool concept when games have multiple endings, and with a game as dynamic as Baldur's Gate 3, it makes sense. I thoroughly enjoyed all three acts, and even though there are many bugs that Larian has to fix, the game is a masterpiece. But does the ending do the entire game justice? Does the ending appropriately complete stories and provide a satisfying epilogue? In this video, we explore the game's primary ending, its strengths, flaws, and weaknesses. There are spoilers ahead, let's get into it. After completing my own game, I was curious about other endings, so I watched countless videos on the game's ending. No matter what choices you make, it seems like the primary ending stays fairly consistent. The final cutscene that ties up loose ends, or rather attempts to tie up loose ends, occurs in one location, near the ocean on a dock in Baldur's Gate. Your party and other characters stand around a ruinous Baldur's Gate, making superficial and general comments about saving the world and beating the Elder Brain. They can make plans to have a giant celebration of drinking and festivities to commemorate the day you saved the world. The origin characters may differ in the end depending on a few of your choices, but generally there is Astarion, Shadowheart, Karlach, Gale, Lae'zel, and Will. As for the side characters, there's Halsin and Jaira. And again, depending on the choices you make, either Orpheus or the Emperor. Then after the cutscene ends at the docks, you have a triumphant cutscene that takes you through Baldur's Gate with the narrator's voice telling you how you saved the world and you have become a legend. Then, depending on who your lover is, there is one additional scene with one of the origin characters. Apart from a brief monologue from Withers, that's basically it. So, let's examine both the strengths and flaws of this ending. Unfortunately, there aren't many strengths I want to mention. At the very least, Larian doesn't end the game without a few additional cutscenes that attempt to finalize the story, which should count for something. Out of all the origin characters, Lae'zel perhaps has the best ending. If you choose, Lae'zel can fulfill her destiny and dream and ride off in glory on a dragon back to the Githyanki world. If every character had a similar wrap-up as Lae'zel, the ending would be easier to overlook. But that's not what happens. The principal flaw with the ending is that Larian finalizes every story in one continuous scene. Astarion gives a quick goodbye without being seen again as he realizes the tadpole's powers have worn off and he is getting cooked in the sun. Or, in my ending, he was an enigmatic hovering eye, maybe to represent him being an ascended vampire, or maybe it was just a bug. Shadowheart makes some weird drowning comment and then talks about drinking the night away. Gale has a quick part of "I'm alive and well and the power-hungry force inside me feels abated." Karlach has a quintessential heroic sacrifice scene where she dies in a fiery flame. Will may get one line in if he's lucky. Again, all of this may vary slightly based on your conversations and choices, but generally that's the gist of the ending. To me, the ending feels so lackluster and uninspiring to have every origin character in their story in one continuous scene at the docks. It's almost like they slapped together this ending so every character is like, it's been fun and it's been real, but it ain't been real fun. See ya. It's a huge glaring flaw that creates more questions than it does answers. Why not take the time to flesh out each ending in separate scenes that properly finalizes their story? What happens to the city? What happens to Will? What happens to Nightsong and Isabel? What happens to Halsin? What happens to Jaira? What happens to all of these characters with whom we've had interaction? As of right now, not a whole lot, which is a big miss in my opinion. As it stands currently, the ending can also be bugged. For example, I had Gale sacrifice himself to destroy the Elder Brain, and although Gale dies in a lively scene where he confronts the Elder Brain, he comes back alive and extremely well, like I didn't have him just detonate his orb over the city. I realize it must be a bug, but again, to have the ending bug out like that leaves a negative mark in what was a masterpiece of a game. Larian will most likely fix the bug in an upcoming patch, but for many players, the awkwardness of the moment may not be forgotten. The last scene with your lover is odd. On my first playthrough, I romanced Shadowheart, and when she mentions enjoying the previous night, I thought, oh, maybe I accidentally skipped a cutscene with the celebration and passionate night I must have spent with Shadowheart. I quickly skipped the rest so I could reload the game and watch the celebratory cutscene and preceding romance scene. Nope, again, the game skipped directly to Shadowheart referencing the night, and I was baffled. Maybe I somehow skipped over it again. I reloaded the game one more time before I realized I didn't skip over any scene, and that's the way the cutscenes play out. Now, for a game that has so many different sex scenes and a wide variety of characters that you can romance, why not have one final passionate scene after you just save the world? I don't really get it, and the scene feels out of place, like they hurried to add it in there when someone remembered that romance was a big feature of the game. After you beat the Elder Brain, that's it. The game ends with the classic credits, and to do anything else with your playthrough, you have to reload the game from before you take on the Elder Brain. I'll be frank, I hate this decision to completely end the game. Why not let us walk around the ruinous Baldur's Gate, exploring the damage to the city? I think it would be cool if we could go and talk with origin characters, minor characters, and other NPCs after the end to further explore Baldur's Gate and the world. Something similar actually happens in the city after we kill Gortash, so why not make it happen again? This idea brings me to my next point. There are a few different ways Larian can end the game on a more satisfying positive note. One possibility, which is realistically a long shot, is to give us the opportunity to explore the world after the Elder Brain is dead. Imagine us being able to visit Will in Worm's Rock Fortress during his coronation as Archduke of Baldur's Gate, or visiting Karlach on the beach where she then burns up in a fiery flame, or attending the wedding of Nightsong and Isabel. These are quick ideas off the top of my head, but my point is that you no longer get this uninspiring mess of an ending where every character gets basically one piece of dialogue. You could explore Shadowheart's ending, maybe she opens up a home for the orphans, you could see Gale build and create a school for wizards, you could explore the city and interact with NPCs who thank you for saving their city. You could visit the Sharess Crest and have multiple unforgettable nights. Astarion might live in a palace of his own. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but the possibilities are endless. Some might say, well, wait a second, Spooky Pops. Maybe Larian wants the game to end with finality without the possibility of exploring the world post-Elder Brain. Okay, that's fine. Then at least give us a slideshow to read at the end of the game that completes and finishes the story. Don't leave us hanging on a cliff wondering what happened with all of these people we've come to love. I said this point earlier in the video, but for a game as expansive and dynamic as Baldur's Gate 3, it just feels bad when the ending is so abrupt. So instead of the game being a complete masterpiece from start to finish, the end puts a black eye on the entire experience. But hey, maybe I'm alone with this idea. What did you think of the ending? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. Spooky Pops out.